I just took the leap buying a bunch of expensive hand tools into being a self proclaimed woodworker. So, my name is Mike, and I've spent most of my career doing white collar, techie sales jobs. But in this video, as you see me navigating this piece of lumber through my house into my absolutely tiny basement workshop, I will be showing you how a beginner woodworker attempts to make a console table that can be found on an expensive furniture store's website called Crate and Barrel for $1,000. I'm going to show you how I can make that for less than $100. And here we are, a furnace room. This is going to be setting the stage for where this table gets built and how you see me learning through this process for the first time. Let's get into it. Okay, so I got this piece of wood, and I'm going to show you what I'm trying to make. So I don't know if you can see that. Let me check. But that's what I want to make. So this is crate and barrel. Oops. I want to make that, right? So my gut tells me that this is probably made of like some kind of oak and stained, but just a really nice little console table that I want to make for my living room in the corner, right? And the crazy thing is, this costs $1,000, 1,049 Canadian dollars. So I'm thinking that if I can build this using this, which this is poplar, this is super cheap, I think I could probably build this whole thing for like $50. So we're gonna see how I do there, right? So again, I'll show you on the screen if you can't see from this laptop. That's what I'm trying to build, right? And you know, there's gonna be obviously some challenges here. The biggest one being that, you know, I know very little about woodworking. I know you're looking here and I got the Ryoba, I got some Veritas tools, but to be honest, I'm just a guy who watches YouTube videos and spent some money on some cool tools, and now I'm kind of diving into this head on. So skill gap, that's a big challenge. Not knowing how to work with poplars, I think it's a pretty easy wood to work with. This is my first time. So that's going to be something. I think the hardest thing is going to be the joinery, assembling this in a way where things don't split and crack over time. But anyways, I'm going to give it a shot, and we're going to see how this goes. And if you can see these, I don't know if there's light here, but basically I kind of sketched out a rough plan. I'll try to pump up the brightness of this in post, but that is the game plan. I'm going to cut a bunch of posts out of this to build the frame of the table. And yeah, we're going to go from there and see how we do. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do here is I think I want to cut a chunk of this into the approximate length, if you can see here, of the long posts that I'm going to be using to make the frame of this table. So I can't cut very straight with this Ryoba. If you've never used one of these, you know, there's two different sides. So one has a rip cut for cutting kind of this way, and the other side of teeth are cross cut for cutting across the wood grains. So I'm going to measure this out. I need 10 22-inch long posts for the long sections of this table. I'm probably going to cut them to like 22 and a half, just to give me room if I cut on an angle or I make a mistake. Let's see how this goes. Whew. All right. So if you know what you're doing, you're probably looking at me and thinking, what an absolute idiot. This thing was sliding around. I was just afraid of this piece falling off and hitting my camera off my tripod. But one thing I just noticed, and this is probably a rookie mistake, there's kind of a crack in this board, so I'm going to have to cut around that and measure my posts, keeping that in mind, just so that I don't have a split piece. But we got our first piece cut. So, I don't know if you can see me up there, but the next thing I'm going to do is these posts. So the posts I'm using to make this table are going to be 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch square and 22 inches long. So out of this piece of wood that I just cut, which I actually cut it to 23 inches because I was afraid I was going to cut on an angle, I'm going to try to measure out like 1 1/4 inch posts out of this. I'm going to cut strips out, and then I'm going to plane this down to make them smooth. So let's do that. Sorry, I misspoke. This is 2 inches thick. They're going to be 2 by 2 by about 2 by 2 by 2, maybe a little less because I'm going to shave some off, but that was a mistake. Okay. So for this cut, we're using the rip cut teeth because I'm ripping through between the fibers of this wood. So let's see how this goes. Whew. I got one piece and I had to like go from both ends because I kept cutting off my line, but that was quite a bit of work, and I got to do that 10 more times for these 22 inch long pieces, and then I think 6 more times for the 14 inch long pieces. So I got to cut a bunch more of these, and then I need to plane all these down and make sure they're square on all sides. and the same. So yeah, let's keep going. And then just one thing, working in a basement shop and using these hand tools, I made a ton of mess, and my lady would be pretty pissed if I was dirtying the house. So I had to get a decent vacuum to allow me to clean all this stuff up. Otherwise, that would just be terrible. All right, let's go.